Okay, so hello everyone. How exciting! Tomorrow is Purim, tomorrow night, and what a wonderful idea to put a shir about Esther, Queen Esther. Um, Tomorrow is going to be the fast of Esther, and the Megillah, the scroll, is also called Megillat Esther. So she is definitely very dominantic at our Purim celebration. And in general, I mean, we look up to Queen Esther and we say, this amazing woman, she saved the Jewish nation for years. Me and you, we wouldn't be here if not for what she did back then. But how much do we really know about what she did? And I want to ask a question at the beginning of this class and say, was Esther a public sacrifice or she was a public servant? I hope I'm understood. I will ask it again. Okay. Was she a public sacrifice? She sacrificed a lot for us. Or she was a public servant? The answer, we're going to try to answer during this shir together and to see how does Esther, how does she feel about what she did herself? And after this year, I hope how we going to look at Esther, at her choice of what she did. Now, I'm just going to say in the beginning that everything I'm going to say is going to be sent to you by email. This is a shir that was translated thanks to Lani Friedman there into English. So it's well and nice put together. So if things will not be so understood from what I'm saying now, it will be sent to you by email by Galit. And I'm sure you're going to be able to see the whole holistic thing, even if here and there it will be a little bit difficult with my English. All right, so we're going to go in Esther's footsteps in the next 60 minutes and to see not only what she did for us, how did she see herself inside of it? How did she exist in such situations? What do we know about Esther? Actually, the beginning of the Megillah starts with a very, very passive woman. We see a woman that's been taken. She's an orphan. She doesn't have parents. She's being taken from Mordechai's house into a place that she doesn't want to be there. She barely enjoys anything that the king gives her. She keeps kosher, obviously, so she's eating, she's barely putting anything into her mouth. She doesn't want nice clothing. She doesn't want nice perfume. She doesn't want a sauna. She doesn't want a jacuzzi. She doesn't want nothing. She says, leave me alone, please. I just want to go back to where I was. I just want to be back in Mordechai's house. The last thing I want is to be here, to exist in this palace. Now, she does minimum for herself, just for the existing of Esther Amalka inside of the palace. So she's an existing person at the moment. The time that we see and we hear Esther is into the Megillah, like chapter 5, 6, and on, we see a totally different woman. She's really surprising us. Mordechai comes and says to her, you know, you're going to have to get up now. You're going to have to make different decisions. You're going to have to go into the king, even though he did not call you. You're going to have to go and show him how beautiful you are, and you're going to have to cry out, scream, holler, and ask for the Jewish nation, and don't even think not to do it. If you're going to make a different decision, you should just know that God has his ways. He's going to find someone else to do it. And you're going to pay the price for you and for your parents' home and for your decision for not doing it. From that point on, we see a woman that she's like a different person. She's a different character. She dresses up. She gives a fight to Mordechai. We're going to speak about that. But after that, she's very, very active. She goes into the lions. She invites Haman to come together with Achashverosh to sit down for this meal that she put together for them, and not once, twice. And then she pulls out the main card and she says, "This is my nation. You're going to destroy my nation. I'm begging you for my life and for my nation's life." And the story changes from passive to active. She's like a different person. We did not see this character before. We didn't see her personality before. We saw a woman that remains very, very quiet. She she chooses to be silent as she's requested to be, and um, she stays quiet for a long time. Long time is 5 years. She's in Ahasuerus's palace for 5 years, remaining a promise that she made for Mordechai not to say a word. That's not easy. That's very, very hard. Let's take apart 5 years, day after day after day. And what's the big deal if she would open her mouth and say, let's think what would she gain? She would gain maybe some understanding towards her, maybe some understanding to her rules of her life, that she has to eat kosher, that she can't touch him at certain times, all different things. Maybe, we don't know. Maybe even he's going to say, well, I really don't like the Jewish nation. I mean, please get out of my palace. Maybe she would be able to go back to Mordechai. Rashi says that the reason that she wasn't allowed to say for Mordechai was for one main reason. Achashverosh was known to be a king without royal roots. He didn't come from royalty. He had very low-class jobs by Vashti's father's kingdom. And he fell in love with Vashti, or she fell in love with him, and that's a result of that became their marriage. So in that case, Mordechai is worried that maybe by Ahasuerus knowing that Esther comes from royalty, she is from the root line of Shaul HaMelech. So she's from the Binyamin tribe, which means she's coming from royalty. Obviously, he's going to be very interested in Esther after that. That's what Mordechai was worried about. And that's why he's asking her, be quiet. Now, is it so easy to be quiet? Is it so easy when somebody is doing anything and everything in order for you to open your mouth and to say, who are you? From where are you coming? She was a real secret in this palace. She was a mystery. And he's a king that nobody says no to. When his first wife said, no, I'm not coming, her head was taken off. It's not easy. She has here, she made a promise. She understands the responsibility of remaining silent. She knows that she must stay quiet. Oh boy, it's so hard. Now, it's not only that it's hard because she's a woman. I mean, ask us, how many secrets do we keep? Very hard for us. Obviously, to be in a place that's so much pressure on you to say, we have to understand what it means. En Esther magedet ama umeladeta kasher tziva alea Mordechai. So hard. How does she do it? What do we know about Esther? We know that she was born an orphan. Her mother conceived, and then she had Esther. Her father died right after that, and her mother died during childbirth. So she comes into the world, she's lonely. Now, we all know that, and when you grow older, I'm sure you see it even more, how the first chapter of our life, childhood, is so important. It builds our self-esteem. It gives us a place in the world. It gives us, hopefully, a good eye of parents that see what you have, the potential. They help you to take it out. There's so much for that childhood. Now, Esther doesn't have that. She doesn't have parents. She has an uncle. She has Mordechai that hopefully he does for her what parents did for children. That's what Chazal tells us. But she's still missing the eyes of a mother. She's missing the heart of a father. Why did she come into the world like this? What was so important for her not to have at least parents? Why is she remaining to be such a tragedy woman? Let's just try to imagine her. So she's an orphan and she grows without parents and she grows by Mordechai's house. She's a Bis Yaakov girl. She's a good, tzniistic girl. She knows about God. She knows mitzvot. She keeps them from day one. She's brought up in the house of Mordechai, was the one of the Sanhedrin. He's a very, very important, one of the main rabbanim, maybe even the biggest one. She's not a simple girl. What did she want? What was her wishes? She wanted to get married to a nice Jewish boy, to have nice Jewish kids, to see them going to yeshiva, Talmud Torah, keeping mitzvot. That's what she wanted. The life that she ends up having is like 180 degrees different than her dream and her, what did she want? Rashi tells us Mordechai took her lo levat. What does it mean, levat? Rashi says, don't call it for a daughter. He didn't only raise her as a daughter, he got married to her. She's his wife. She's his wife that this king, Achashverosh, is looking out to get girls, not only virgin girls. He's going to take every woman that he can put a hand on. He's exactly the opposite than what she ever wanted to be and where she wanted to be. While all the rest of the girls are trying, to put nice makeup, buy nice, beautiful dress, higher heels, to make sure to get his attention and to be called to be the first lady. Esther is trying to hide. Esther doesn't want. Esther is being taken against her will into this palace. And from that point on, her whole life is destroyed. We will see how. So we asked before, why did she come into the world without parents? And that's a very interesting chazal. They say like this, that Esther is from the Binyamin tribe. She comes from Rachel Imenu. Amalek, which Haman comes from, they come from Esav. Esav has one mitzvah that he kept so well, and it's his biggest zchut in the world of Esav was the way he took care of his father. His kibud av to Yitzchak is something that no one else could have ever done better than Esav. Now, this merit, this zchut stays for Esav generations. And in order for someone to go against Amalek, against someone that has this merit of the zchut of mitzvat kibud av, like Esav had, you're gonna have to have someone that doesn't have a pgam, doesn't have what's the word? Doesn't have nothing affected the way he kept his mitzvah of kibud horim. Now, how could you get to that level? Only if you don't have parents. If you don't have parents, you didn't even have parents for one moment, you didn't have the zchut to do the mitzvah of kibud horim. Therefore, only Esther could have been and come against someone like Amalek. If not, it wouldn't happen. And that's an amazing thing on its own. How much we have to be careful with this special mitzvah that we have, and how much our kids have to be careful with it. This is a Megillah of mystery. Her name Esther, she came to the world with the name Hadassah. Hadassah was her main name. Hadassah was the name her teacher in Bes Yaakov called her like that. Her friends called her, Jewish friends called her like that. Hadassah. Now, when Mordechai wants to take her, Mordechai is sending her, unfortunately, into the palace, he says, hide your name, hide your nation. How do we hide? When the sun is not shown. So he gave her a name of a moon. Her name is Moon in Persian. Her name is Esther, which means we can't see you. Something is hiding. That's actually what he gives her. He says to her, I have no clue. I have no idea. Why are you taken from me? You're my wife. Why? And let's hope that he doesn't like you. The Gemara tells us that she was, it's not the Gemara, Yalkut Shimoni says that she was, if she was a young woman, she was 40 years old. And if she was older, she was already 75 years old when Achashverosh takes her. The Gemara has a debating if she was a pretty woman, if she wasn't such a pretty woman. If she was a very pretty woman, so she's one of the 4 extremely beautiful women in the world, Sarah, Rachav, Avigail, and Esther. And those that say that she wasn't, in Masechet Megillah, they say that she was a little bit greenish in her face. And what did God do? He put the most chen into her. She became so charming that he couldn't resist. So no matter how we look at it, she is coming into this palace not understanding what happened to her life. Why me? She says, she burst out crying to God. She says, Keli, Keli, lama azaftani? Why me? There's so many girls in the world that would have been so happy to come into this palace. So many girls that would have been privileged to be the queen, the first lady. Why me? The Bes Yaakov girl. What happened? That's how she comes in. And not only that she doesn't understand what's going on with her, Mordechai says, I can think that there is a reason from God. Why did he put you there? But I don't know. And a year goes by, and another year goes by, 3 years, 4 years. He doesn't understand. And not only that, the people in Shushan, the Jewish people in Shushan, they didn't hold of Esther. Chazal tells us that they said she's not a tzadekis. If she would have been a very special woman, if she would have been in Tzidkut, then she wouldn't stay there more than 3 days. Sarah Imenu came into the palace and by Paro and Sefer Bereshis, and she was taken only for 3 days. Then God, oh boy, he gave Paro, he gave him such a tzarat, worms all over his body, and he threw her out of the palace. He said, you're a holy woman. And look at Esther, she's already sitting there for 5 years, which means she's not such a big tzaddik, not such a big mitzvah. So we thought that maybe God took her for some reason for us, but we see she's not. She's not helping the Jewish nation. She's just sitting there. Not only that, where was really Esther? Was she caring? Was she communicating with her brothers and sisters out of the palace? No. We see in the beginning of the Megillah, it tells us she was just existing. She was trying to take day by day. She took her 7 girls that they were given to her. She called one Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because she wanted to know when Shabbos is coming. When you're busy of knowing which day you are living in, you're not busy in big things and politics that's going on out of the palace. Who cares? I'm just worried that I wouldn't get to eat chas v'shalom, anything not kosher for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How do I dress tsanua with Achashverosh, which he is the king? The only thing he had in mind is wine and women. How does it go? Not only that, Taharat HaMishpacha. What do you do with Hilchos Nida? What do you do with everything? What do you do with the language? How do you come and bring yourself to come to a king like this when he wants you, the way he wants you. Oh, not easy. That's Esther's life. Very, very hard. And not only that, on top of everything, pressuring her. Tell us who you are. Tell us what's your identity. Tell us from where you're coming. Tell us what's your roots. Not easy. So I want to ask the main question of this class. How? How, Esther? She's a human being. How does she handle this amount of pressure? How does she remain silent, even though it's horrifically hard? How does she do it? From where does she have this major power to continue being quiet and doing what Mordechai is asking her to do? Who's her great great grandmother? From where does she come? There is a great woman that did something in the world, that she brought power into the world before Esther, that Esther takes from her power. That's Rachel Imenu. Rachel Imenu, she maintains to be the main woman and the first woman that stayed silent in a very, very, very critic position. It's her wedding night. Who doesn't dream about her wedding? The white dress, the flowers in the head, the music, the dancing. I mean, wow, we live for it. You know, we go to kindergarten. We dress up. Today I drove the kids to school. I mean, so many beautiful brides. It's like, who wasn't a bride or a queen? That's what a woman wants to be. Her night. Rachel is getting married. She's sitting. She wants to sit in the chair. Her father comes and switches her with her sister. Why don't you go to your sister Leah and say, listen, excuse me, he chose me to be his wife. This is not game. This is not a game. I'm not gonna end up with the wrong man for the rest of my life because you're gonna get offended. So you're gonna get over it. No. Not only did she remain silent, she also goes and gives her sister the codes, the secret codes between her and her loved one, Yaakov. She doesn't just say, okay, I'll keep quiet. Let's see what happens. I mean, she's doing something really not nice. So she's participating with my father. I mean, I don't have I don't have to help her to get out of it nicer. No, she does exactly the opposite. Chazal tells us not only that, she was underneath the bed with Yaakov and Leah, that he shouldn't even hear the voice of Leah, that she shouldn't be embarrassed for one moment. That's an amazing, an incredible story. In the morning when he gets up, he says, what is it? I married the wrong woman. Tragedy. Rachel makes sure and explains to Leah that she is chosen. That's Yaakov's mistake. That I didn't do anything special by giving you the codes. You deserve them. Milechatchila, you deserve them. And she remains quiet. She remains quiet when she doesn't have kids. She remains quiet when Leah burst out screaming at her, you took my husband. She's quiet. Well, God looks at what Rachel does and he says, it's not human what you did. It's so amazing what you did that for that, you're going to get schuyot. Your kids that are going to come out of you are going to be able to do two things: to keep quiet in critic times. They're going to take from your power and they're going to change the world. They're going to build the world from their quiet. You built Beit Yaakov. You build the home of Yaakov. 12 kids you build from your silence. For this schut, for this merit, I'll give your kids to be able to take from your power and to keep quiet in critic times. And not only that, only your sons will be able to fight the tribes that came out of Rachel. They were the only one that could have stood against Amalek. Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin. But let's see how it goes. So Rachel has a son. Her son, his name is Binyamin. Binyamin is the second man in the world that takes from the power of Mama Rachel. He takes from the power of silence. The stone, the rock that was on the chest of the Kohen Gadol, the Choshen, the rock that belongs to the tribe of Binyamin is called Yishpeh. Yud Shin Pei Hey. When you cut the word, it comes out to Yesh Peh. There is a mouth over here, and somebody is keeping silence. Binyamin knew that the brothers sold Yosef. He even knew that they wanted to kill him. He remains quiet. Yaakov leaves the world. Ramban tells us in Sefer Bereshis Memchet, he leaves the world without knowing of selling Yosef. Yaakov doesn't know that his own sons wanted to sell their own brother. Who was the one that knew? Who was the one that could have just went and said, look, father, it's not what you think. Don't think so highly about your sons. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to kill our own brother. They gave you 22 years of mourning. It's all because of them. No, Yaakov leaves this world without knowing. Who remains quiet? Binyamin. How does he do it? He takes from the silence of his mother. He takes from her power. The third one is going to be Shaul HaMelech, Saul the king. He's called a humbled king. When he started, he's the most handsome man in the whole entire Israel. He's extremely tall, like a basketball player, and he is smart. He is tzaddik, and he's very, very humble. And when he goes, he's looking after his father's donkeys, and he finds the donkeys, but he also finds Shmuel, Samuel the prophet, and he makes him to become the first king. When Shaul HaMelech, he goes back, Saul the king goes back, nobody knows he's the king, nobody knows he was chosen, and he starts getting prophet, and people around him are starting to laugh at him and say, who do you think you are? What are you saying? Look at that. Even Saul thinks that he is one of the prophets. Now, to remain quiet about such a thing, I mean, I don't know how much you are on the social media today, but if you made a great cake, you take a picture of it, you put it on Facebook, and you show the whole world to clap you. Look what you did. Beautiful cake. Look at my challah. Look at the custom. Look at my kids. Look. I made an egg for breakfast. I'm sharing it with the world. He doesn't share the fact that he is chosen to be the first king of the Israeli nation. Amazing. And not only that, until they don't do a goralot, and they take the note out that he was chosen, he keeps quiet, doesn't tell it to one person. A lot of power comes out of it. It's a lot of power of being able to keep silence when everybody else is laughing at you. That's Saul, the king. And he comes straight out of Rachel Imenu. That's from her koach in the world, what she left. And the third one is obviously is Esther Malka. She comes into the world and she remains quiet in a position, in situations not unheard of. But she's not the only one. Also David HaMelech, the King David. He's running away from his son. His own son, Absalom, wants to kill him. He has to run away from his own palace in Jerusalem. He goes and he passes a place that's called Bachurim. It's next to Binyamin tribe. Comes out towards him. The Gadol Ador. Think about Rav Chaim Kanievsky, younger, being able to come out and see David HaMelech. That was Shim'i ben Gera. Comes out and he starts screaming, hollering, shaming David HaMelech, telling him, you're a murderer. You have blood on your hands. You don't belong anymore to be the king of the Israeli nation. He throws rocks at him. Terrible things. And right next to David is standing his general. His name is Yoav. And he says to David HaMelech, count to 3, I'm going to take off his head. And David HaMelech screams back at Yoav, don't you dare. What do you think? Shimei wants to curse me? You think it's Shimei? God told him, God put the words in his mouth. Let him continue. This is the voice of God. It's not the voice of Shimei. An amazing thing. Think about it. He's standing, he's the king. Yeah? Not a politician, not just the mayor of the town. It's the king. And he's coming and he's saying terrible things about him. And he could have, should have, killed him. David remains silent. He's quiet. He asks Yoav to stop planning of killing him. He doesn't kill him. Who comes out of Shimei? Mordechai, ben Yair, ben Shimei. This Shimei was the great-great-grandfather of Mordechai. If David HaMelech would kill him because of the shaming he did to him, then the whole story of Purim would have never existed. David HaMelech is called Yehudi. He's from Shevet Yehuda. When we say that Mordechai is Ish Yehudi Haya Beshushan Habira, he comes from also the tribe of Judah. Why? Because of this story. Because Shimei was from the tribe of Binyamin, but David HaMelech is from the tribe of Yehuda, and the mother of Mordechai was from the tribe of Yehuda. His father was from Binyamin. But the merit of Mordechai existing is because David HaMelech chose in a very, very critical moment not to do something that anyone else in the world would have done so easily and also would have the right to. He kept silence. He walked past him, cursing him silently, quiet, walking like this, not thinking that from this is maybe going to come out a person that's going to save the Jewish world. No, right now I'm saving myself. I'm not putting myself in a situation that I'm killing somebody because I got offended and my ego right now is screaming, kill him, kill him. So all of these silences is power in the world. And the first one that put this power into the world is Rachel Imeinu, Mama Rachel. She puts this power, it's here for me and for you. She says it's here in the world. We can come and we can take from this power. And we can also do, not as great as Esther Hamalka, but we can do things on the daily basis from out of this power to hold the strength that she put into the world. There is a very big difference in Hebrew between the word livro to the word leyatzer. I don't know exactly how to say it in English, but livro means actually only God can do it. It's to make water. It's to make day, to make night, to make fire. We can't create the fire. We can take from the fire that exists and we can make something new. We made electricity from taking the power of fire in the world, but we did not create the fire. Only God can create something from new. When a person, the first person, creates something from new, the first one to do it, it's a creation. So Rachel Imeinu created something in the world. And from that point on, we all can come and take from that. And we see that those that took changed the world. So that's the koach that Queen Esther has by keeping silence. But there's another thing for Esther Amalka, and I want us to see it too. There is the discussion between Mordechai to Esther, which, at least for me, it blows my mind off. Here she is, 5 years in this palace. She hears actually, that Mordechai is walking out in the streets with ripped clothing. And she sends Hatach, and she says, go and find out for me what's going on. Why is he walking out like this? What's going on? He comes back and he tells her, the beautiful king that you married to and his advisor, they both decided to discriminate our whole nation. Babies, kids, mothers, fathers, older people, everyone. That's the reason Mordechai is looking out like this. She gets extremely, extremely scared. And she says to Mordechai what to do. And he says to her, he sends back to her, I'm asking you to stop being silent. You did such a wonderful job until now. You're an amazing, you get a reward. You're really something special. But at this moment, I'm asking you to do something else. Please go for all of us. You're the only one that's inside of this palace. You're the only one that can talk to him. Please go and ask for all of us. I would think that she would run. Put your best dress, put your makeup on. Didn't you wait for this moment? Run. Say, of course I will. But she doesn't. She's having an argument with Mordechai. And she tells him, I can't go into the king right now. If he didn't call me, for 30 days he didn't call me, I can't just walk in through his door. It doesn't go like this. I will come in from the front door and I will leave from the second door without my head. And he's fighting back with her, Mordechai. He says, I know you're in danger. I know. But if you're going to continue being silent now, you can't even imagine what's going to be, because God has his ways. He's going to find someone else that's going to be worthwhile more than you. Now, let's stop here and understand this discussion, because really it's not understood. So she should have told him, I'm scared. He would have said, okay, let's have a session with a psychologist and help you before you going into him. I can understand. Not only that, what is she going to fast? If this is a king that's all what he has in mind is women, and the more beautiful they are, the more it makes him happy. Now, what she's going after 3 days of not eating, oh my gosh, how she looks like. She looks like she's fainting. Sit in tubs. Put yourself great cream with great perfume and the best clothing, and then go into him. I mean, what is she saying? What is she doing? So it's not understood. She's arguing with Mordechai about the moment. She says to him, look, this was almost a year before the date they put in order to discriminate the whole entire Israel nation. But it's 11 months ahead. So she says to him, why to put myself at the moment into this danger? If I put myself now into this danger, then could be he's killing me, and then there's going to be nothing. What is your strategic plan with me going right now when I'm not called to go into the king? And he says to her, now you're going in. Now, because God is looking to see if you're putting yourself into danger. If you are doing anything and anything and anything that you can in order to save, when it's not possible to do, when it's unheard of to do things like this, if you're going to go out of your comfort zone in order to do something for someone else, when it's not your will, when it's not something that you want, when it's something that you might get killed for, when you do that, the price for that, the award for that is going to be amazing. God wouldn't be able to resist. He wouldn't resist when he's going to see you're existing and what you're doing. I want you, I'm asking you to do it, but don't do it just because I am saying to do it. I want to see it happening because you are choosing to do it. Now, did she? So Rashi says something there that it can blow our mind. He says, what does she say? She says, Kasher avadeti, avadeti. The biggest price that she has to pay for what she's going to do is now, right now, at this moment. You remember, she was married to Mordechai. She's the woman that is staying in the side of this palace against her will. She does anything and everything that it wouldn't be her will. If she would ask for one dress, which means she's happy to be there. If she would ask just for dessert, just for ice cream, kosher, she would be like she wants to be there. She's getting some enjoyment from being there. For 5 years, she doesn't take nothing, but nothing. She doesn't ask for one thing, not to show that she has any willness, any wanting to be there. Why? Because the Gemara tells us she was married to Mordechai. Whenever she can, she walked out of the palace. She went to the mikveh, and from there she went to Mordechai. She was with him. And from there she came back to Achashverosh. And again to Mordechai with the mikveh, and again back to Achashverosh. Which means she lives a double life inside of this palace. Horrific, really hard. But now, when you're asking me to want to go to the king, when you're asking me to change my will for God's will and for your will, I am losing you forever. Because when I have a will to go into the king and I'm not doing it because I have to, that changed my situation. And I will never be able to be Mordechai's wife anymore, ever. And she does it. She does it. And the Gemara tells us that from that moment, she continues living in the palace after this whole story of us. And she never goes back to Mordechai. Mordechai actually, he goes back to Eretz Israel, leaves her behind inside of the palace, away from the nation that she loves, away from her brothers and sisters, away from the man that she loved. So she is giving in something huge for all of us. And she says, I'm going to go, but how does she go in? And here I'm answering back the question that we started the class with. Was she a public sacrifice, or she was a public servant? So look how she becomes a public servant. Vatilbash Esther Malchut. She's getting dressed in royalty. Now it's not only a beautiful crown on top of her head or this most magnificent dress. No, she's putting on top of her royalty. Rashi says in those words, she's getting the spirit of Kodesh, Ruach HaKodesh. When you do something against your will, you're changing your will for God's will, you are getting and you're acting through a spirit of holiness, because it's not for you anymore. It's for someone else. And it's with a huge price. You're doing it in order to save a whole nation. Obviously, it's worth it, for sure. But don't forget, she's going to get killed. She's there screaming, crying to God, help me. Don't let me go into this king and come out without my head. Be there with me. See how much I bared for this moment. Now I want to ask you, from where does she get this koach? From where does she get this power? It's not easy to make such decisions. It's one thing to say, okay, I'll give up my own marriage, which is amazing, and I'll stay away from all of you with this king that I can't stand. Rasha and Tameh. It's one thing, but it's another thing to, if she would know that she would for sure, be able to make sure that this whole nation is going to be saved Okay, but it's not that. She's not going into knowing that she's really saving the nation. She's doing two things. She might get killed, and most of the percentage was that she will get killed. We saw before he has power. His own wife, beautiful Vashti, she said no to him once, and she paid she paid the big price for it. So she makes a decision, a huge decision. She says, Ribbono Shel Olam, I'm doing it for you, for your children. I'm sacrificing my life, but I'm doing it with a choice. Vatilbash Esther Malchut. I'm doing it for you because I love you, God, and because I understand now that you just didn't put a Beis Yaakov girl inside of this palace for no reason. Everything was planned. I have no clue. I don't know why I was chosen. I don't know why. I don't know what you see in me that I have the power. But if you did all of this and you put me here and you gave me such hard 5 years, and not only that, hard growing up as a kid without parents, everything in my life comes for this moment. This moment is the moment that you called my name for, and I'm going with royalty. Royalty is when we change my will for your will, Hashem. That's called royalty. And from where does she get this power? She gets it from a few other women in the Tanakh that did something extremely special and gave Esther the power that she needed, the power that made all of us to be saved. Now, one woman that did such a thing before is Batya, Bat Paro, the woman that she's the daughter of Paro. She lives in his palace, and she goes against his will, and she throws out her hand to save a little baby. She didn't know that he's just Jewish kid. Oh yeah, she knew. It says straight out. She knows. She takes a baby out and she says, I will save you your life against the will of my own father. And where she's going to raise him? In her father's palace. She put herself into danger. That's Batya, Bat Paro. And you know what she gets for it? Very interesting. In Sefer Divrei Hayamim, it says that she's called Moredet. And she married a Mored. I don't know how to say the word Mored. A rebellion, rebellion. Somebody here can help me with the word. But that's how Divrei Hayamim is calling her. And they ask her, who was her husband? She married Kalev ben Yefuneh. Kalev was one of the 12 Meraglim, those 12 people that were supposed to go into Israel and to check it out and to come back and say, hey, it's a nice nation. But they came back and they said, no, it's a scary place. It's a scary land. Except for him, Kalev and Yehoshua. So he also went against 10 other people that had a message for the Israeli nation that the land that God is taking them is not such a big mitzvah. So Kalev ben Yefuneh marries Batya, Bat Paro, when she converts into Judaism. So from Kalev and Batya, here's the word, their bloodline, out of them comes out Mordechai Yehudi. Why? Because when you have a will to save one little baby on the Ye'or, you don't see a nation, you see one baby. You say, I don't know how even I'm going to reach this baby. I don't know how I'm going to raise him. I don't know if it's going to be possible. I don't know if I'll pay in my life for it. All of this, I don't know. But I'm willing to do the right thing right now. What do you get for that? That out of your bloodline comes out Mordechai Yehudi, which has the power to save a whole nation. And it's not only Mordechai, it's Esther HaMalka also. But not only her. There is a story of three psukim in Sefer Shmuel Aleph. It tells us an amazing story. I mean, most of us just read the Tanakh We don't we don't remember every word that says in the Tanakh. It's a lot of stories over there, but especially people that didn't make it to the headlines, like this Opel. Yeah, the nurse of a little kid, the grandson of Saul the king, the son of Jonathan. His name was Mephibosheth, a 5-year-old little boy that stays home with his Opel, the nurse. She's a simple woman, and she takes care of him while his father is at war, his grandfather is at war. But at this war, they never came home. Saul died, Jonathan died, and two other sons of Saul the king died at this war with Plishtim in the Gilboa. Now, in the whole entire house, there's one woman left with one grandson of Saul the king. His name is Mephibosheth, a 5-year-old little boy. She sees from the window that they're coming to kill him, coming to kill her, coming to kill everyone that had to do with the kingdom of Saul. What does she do? Run! I want to tell her run when I read this psukim. Just take your legs and run out of this house. Who stays in a house like this when you're going to get killed? She doesn't run alone. She runs, she takes this little boy, 5 years old, and she runs with him out of this house on rocks in roads that are not roads. And she mistakenly, but she makes him to fall. He falls and he hurts his spine. And he begins cripple for the rest of his life on both legs. He's 5 years old. She saved his life, but she destroyed his life too, yeah, because she made him to fall. But this fall saves his life. Why? Because when they found out that there's only one bloodline, one kid that stayed alive from Saul's family, this little kid, Mephibosheth, they find out not only that, okay, so he's alive, but he will never be able to be a king because he's crippled. It's not going to happen that we're going to have a crippled king. What did they say? Gonna leave him alone. Let him live. Let him live. Why is this story relevant to us? Look what happens. He gets married one day and he has a son. His son, his name is Allah. Allah is the great grandfather of Mordechai and Esther. So this nurse, this Opel of Mephibosheth, she sees one kid to save. She doesn't see a nation. She sees now, at this moment, I'm going to risk my life for somebody else's life. Not so important. A kid, 5 years old. She could have said, my life is more important. I have a house, I have a family. Maybe she had kids on her own. Run. No, I'm not leaving this house without this kid. She saved the nation. She did mesirut nefesh for one kid without even understanding that she's saving a nation. Don't underestimate what you do when you remain silent in hard situations, or when you decide to change your will for somebody else's will, to help someone else. Don't underestimate what you do. It's amazing to save one kid's life, but you never know. You might save a nation. You do not know what comes out when you decide to be quiet and to change your will for God's will. Because you did not want your story to be written like this. You didn't think this is going to be the description of your life. What is it? It's a bad movie. Most of us are living a bad movie. What happened to me? What happened to us? What happened to my health? What happened to my kids? What happened? We ask a lot of questions without knowing why. But all what we have is to make the right decisions at the right moment and at the right time. And you never know, you build worlds out of it. You never know how far they go. I must tell you that I'm connecting here something that happened to me a few weeks ago. I'm a college teacher. I teach girls before they get married. And I got a phone call from this girl, sweet girl. She's nearly 19. She calls me and she says to me, "You're the third college teacher I'm calling. Listen," she says to me, "I am looking for someone that's willing to teach me, but not to mix in how I'm gonna keep this mitzvahs." I told her, of course, what's the question? Like it's not, I teach you, but you do it the way you want to keep it. She says to me, "I am super modern. I barely keep Shabbos. I'm getting married now to a guy that I love, that we met a while ago, and we both made the decision to keep Taharat HaMishpacha. Now, please don't teach me the chumrot of everything. Don't. I want the basic, but I want to know it right, and I want to do it right." I said, "You're welcome." I sit with her, and we're starting to learn. And the sweet girl, I'm understanding that, look, she knows about life more than I can teach her. She she went to she knows every bar in Israel, you name it. Every single space in her ear is pursed with earrings. Every nail in her toes is polished with a different color. She knows everything. She's sitting next to me, and she made the decision to keep Taharat HaMishpacha. And I'm looking at this girl, and I said to her, I'm privileged for the merit that I have to teach you. You, if I have a Beis Yaakov girl, it's nice, but obviously it's kind of almost obvious that she's keeping this mitzvah. She saw it in generations in her home. But you, that tasted from the whole world, I mean, I feel like I'm sitting in front of the biggest tzedekis right now. Because every time you and your chatan, yeah, you're gonna make a decision to keep, not to touch when it's gonna be hard times, and not to have relations when that's the only thing you know, and why to keep something that you can have it easily. So every time like this that you mitapek it, yeah, you're gonna be um, you're gonna do something very, very special, which is much harder for you than for someone else. That's power. That's a lot of power. I said to her, "Could you tell me from where do you have this power to come into this mitzvah, and why do you want to keep it?" And you know what she told me? She said to me, 2 years ago, when I was in the bottoms of the bottom, I went to a route a trip with my parents to Poland. And one night, 10:30 at night, my mother knocks at my door, and she says to me, "Listen, my daughter," she was like 16 and a half, she says to her, "I have to go to the mikveh tonight." And there's the one only mikveh here in Poland, wherever they were. And I don't have a woman to be the balanit, to keep an eye of how I'm doing the tvila. I don't have a choice. I have to ask you to do it for me. And this girl, 16 and a half year old, is going with her mother to do this mitzvah. And she says to me, "You know what? When I saw my mother, of how much mesirut nefesh she's doing for this mitzvah, and she's turning to me, her own daughter, and asking me to come and stand there and to watch her, overwatch her, what she's doing, because she needed. My mother's not comfortable with what she did. My mother didn't want to do it. I saw how much it took out of my mother. I promised myself back then and there that I will keep Taharat HaMishpacha no matter where I am." And I said to myself, wow, you know, I don't think her mother thought it was so powerful what she did. I don't think her mother felt she didn't have a choice. But her mother changed her will in order to do the mitzvah's will, God's will at that moment, even if it wasn't comfortable for her, even if it was embarrassing for her, even if it's not the first choice to take your daughter to do it for you. What comes out of it? Amazing. Generations. A decision that a young girl, so low where she's standing right now, is making because of an action of her mother. What I want to say is, let's look at Esther. Let's look at what she did. Let's look at Rachel Imenu. Let's look at the power that's in the world from incredible women, of decisions that they took in critic times. Let's take from this power, and we should not underestimate what we do when we choose to change our own willness for God's will. We are building generations. So, happy Purim to you all. Thanks for listening. And Bezrat Hashem, as I said, we're going to send this year with better English, of course. And I hope that you will enjoy it. And the main thing, have Simchat Purim, especially this year. We all didn't have an easy year. We had a year of darkness. We had a lot of difficulties. And God is asking us in the next 3 days, be happy. So let's change our will for His will. And the main thing is, yeah, we should all be happy.
Amen. Thank